All right, it looks like we are streaming. Yes, I am back up and running with this new computer after my last one bricked itself. Windows kind of had a fit, but it looks like everything's going right now. Oh, it looks like the chat is really, really tiny. I might have to take care of that. I can't read it right now, so let me see if I can just cheat and make it bigger somehow. Okay, Mo Excel is the Pope Muslim. All right, I have to do something about that. But anyway, yes, I am going to be taking the communist test. We are going to see if my libertarian cred is solidified or if I need to be given a free helicopter ride. So, hopefully right after, if I can take care of this chat being so small. I don't know why these things keep changing like that. You know what? I think I have to go back to Streamlabs. Someone I can't read says, "What up, Killian? How you doing?" Give me just a second. I mean, if this is the only thing that's going wrong this stream, then I think we're doing pretty good. So let me see where my Streamlabs settings are. Oh, wow, it's really wanting me to go back from the beginning here. I'm having to reset so much from scratch. And the chat was the one thing that I couldn't test before we started the stream. Here we go. Okay, chat box. I don't need the introduction. I'm not a new user. I don't know why it keeps thinking I am. All right. Font size. All right, did that do anything? Okay, that looks better. All right, so I think we're ready to go again. Let me get back to the communism test, and it looks like joining me so far in the VC on our Discord is Pipsqueak. How you doing, Pip?
Hello.
All right, so I guess I can just go ahead and go right into this because I know you are all dying to know how I'm going to come out. Am I going to be a filthy, rotten, commie mutant traitor? So we'll go ahead and start with this first question. Capitalism is a precondition for freedom to flourish. Well, I mean, capitalism is freedom. You know, if you don't have capitalism, then you have some way in which you're interfering with the voluntary interactions between people. So I guess that would be agree. Yeah, okay. And 24 questions, so we'll go to the next one. Slacking is a part of human nature and will only increase in societies where there is no promise of personal financial gain. So yeah, you work for money. You put in effort because you expect to get a benefit from it. I don't know about the word slacking. That sounds like a bit of a loaded word to me, but it really is true. Why should you put energy into something if you're not going to get a benefit from it? You know, like when you park your car, you turn the engine off. You don't just leave it sit there running, wasting gas, because there's no point to it. So, I mean, it's the same thing with your own energy. You're only going to put something in if you get a benefit from it. You're only going to work a job if you get a paycheck, or put in a hobby if you get a certain amount of enjoyment from it. So let's see. Will only increase in societies when there's no promise of personal financial gain. Yeah, so that's an agree. I always have to be careful with agree and disagree on these tests, so we'll see if any of them are worded funny. So far, they're pretty straightforward. Let's see. Hello, Fourth. How you doing? Mr. Bush. Let's see. Hello, Ukraine. How you doing, Bogdan Fokin? I don't know how to pronounce that. And Spammers and Dylan. How come live didn't happen before? I got this notification a while back. Yeah, it was going to happen like a week last Tuesday. And for those of you who missed the whole thing about it, my production machine bricked itself. I mean, I couldn't even get into the BIOS screen. That's how bad it was. That means I needed a new motherboard, which means you're basically replacing the whole machine because you know, you have new processor, new memory, things like that. I was able to get a bare bones system where I moved over the video card and the hard drives from my other computers, so at least I was able to get out of it by only paying $630 instead of the $1,000 I probably would have had to have done to get a new machine of the power I need. It's actually interesting because in the specs, this machine isn't as powerful as my old one. It's like a 3.3 gigahertz Ryzen processor, and my old one was 3.9 gigahertz AMD FX. It was 8 core. This one's only 4 core, but this motherboard has a faster bus, and that bus can make all the difference. And I was actually suspecting that this was the case on my old machine, that the bus was actually the bottleneck for getting everything going. So this one should have much better performance with that, and so far it has. Especially when I put in the other video card. All right, so yeah, sorry about all that. That's also why the videos were kind of out, and the podcast was kind of weird because I was trying to do it on my laptop in Audacity and all that. So anyway, I should be back up and running now. My output should be OS. Yeah, it's still the same. I just moved the system drive over, so it's still dual boot Windows and Linux. So I'm running this on the Windows side. I haven't really had a chance to get into the Linux side. Everything seems to be working, but I was mostly way on this one because this is only one where I can run Vegas. So, but if I can do more and more on the Linux side, believe me, I'll be very happy with that. All right, question 3. Class is not a sufficiently homogeneous entity to form the basis of serious societal analysis. Yeah, I'll go along with that. Because people are individuals, people are not groups, people don't divide things. If there is a valid class division, I've always said it was the political class versus everyone else. Because people say, well, it's the rich and the poor. Well, it's not all of the rich. Because if you're the rich, but you're not a part of the good old boy network, like the Democrats and the Republicans are, you're pretty much cut out from everything. So it's more like the political class versus everyone else. All right. Yeah. So that's agree. All right. A one-party system would get rid of a lot of the nonsense in politics and lead to better decisions overall. Yeah, I don't think so. It hasn't really worked out that well in the past. So, all right, yeah, that's a disagree. Fourth root, shouldn't it be pronounced Linux? Nope. There's a video you can go and look for on YouTube. It's a clip of an interview that Linus Torvalds gave, and what he said was his name, Linus, gets pronounced different ways anywhere. Back home, where he's from, it's pronounced Linus. Most people in Europe pronounce it Linus. He goes to America and he's called Linus, and he says, that's fine. You can call me by any of those things. I will always respond, but Linux is always Linux. He doesn't care how you pronounce his name, but Linux is Linux. So. All right, so, yeah, that's a disagree. We don't want a one-party system. I guess I could say I want a no-party system. I don't want political parties at all. Right. Religion clouds the judgment of the masses and prevent them from seeing reality clearly. Well, I agree with that, but I have no idea what it has to do with communism versus libertarianism. But, okay. First irrelevant question. I'm tempted to leave that one neutral, but I do agree with it, so I'll put it over on agree. We'll see what happens. There should be no such thing as private ownership of business. Yeah, I would disagree with that. All credit and loans should be centralized in one national bank controlled by the state, because absolutely nothing bad has ever happened from that, right? Yeah. Okay, that's a disagree. I'm not sure which one Dylan was talking about with looking to England, but yeah, you can go look around the world, and even in first world places like England, Canada, and see the problems with a lot of these. Yeah. The working classes, there we go, grouping people again. The working classes across the world have more in common with each other than they do with the non-working classes of their own countries. That doesn't make any sense to me, because different countries across the world, they have different religions that are dominant. They have different cultures. They have different foundational belief systems. So, I don't get how you would say, a poor person and a rich person, in a Muslim country where they're both Muslim, would have more in common with their counterparts in a Christian nation or a largely atheist nation like Norway, just because they're in that class. No, that's not how it works. Now, people are not automatons. They don't really fit into these little classes here. So, as though had more in common with each other than they do with another. Okay, so that's disagree. The state should ensure an even-handed distribution of population across the nation's territory. This is a new one on me. I wasn't aware this was a thing that commies wanted to do. And it's a stupid idea. Because, some people, I kind of like living out in the boonies. And I don't mind driving places. But, a lot of people find a benefit in living in a big city where they can just, walk, 2 minutes to get everywhere they want. Of course, communism is where everyone is equal under death. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, once everyone starves, everyone who's in that pile of bodies in the mass grave, they're all equal. Yep. All right. So, yeah, disagree with that. I don't think I've even met any socialist or communist who is... So maybe they believe it and they just didn't express it, but it's a new one on me. The individual's best interests are indistinguishable from society's best interests. All right, I think we've come to the first problematic question. There is no society's best interest. There is the best interest of individuals in the society. Okay, so in that sense, I agree with it. The best interest of society is the best interest of the individuals in society. But those individuals are going to disagree. They're going to disagree on what the best interest should be. So it really all depends on how you go this. So if you're saying like, oh, well, they're the same thing, and therefore when we say that such and such is good for society and we force everyone to go along with it, it's the best interest of every individual in society. No, that's not how it works. So I'm not really sure about the context of this question. Because you don't have a society without the individuals who make up the society. And each individual should be left alone to decide what their own best interests are. Yes. And so Grambo says, when it's the obligation of the individual to self-sacrifice for the good of society. Well, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, because if you're saying, okay, that individual's best interest is to stay alive, and therefore it will be nonsensical to say that his self-sacrifice would be good for society because it wouldn't be good for the individual. So that's one way of interpreting this question, and that I would agree with. The other way of interpreting it is that, well, since it's society's best interest, it really is his individual's best interest after all, and so he should be made to self-sacrifice. So do you get what I'm saying with this question? I don't actually know what it's asking. I don't know which way it's going from this. So. You got any ideas on that, Pip? You've been pretty quiet.
No, this one's got me stumped.
Yeah.
This was pretty straightforward.
When that society is worth preserving, a liberal metropolitan society is not worth your self-sacrifice. Well, who decides what society is worth preserving? Who's going to sit there and bang their gavel and say yes or no to that? I'm going to leave this one in the middle. It's a bad question. They were bound to happen. We always have the bad questions with these. All right. There should be no such thing as private ownership of land. Okay, now we're back to a more obvious thing. So, yeah. disagree with that because I do think there should be such a thing as private ownership of land. That's where the negative means a positive. It's one of the funny things, but at least it's clear. All means of communication should be centralized in the hands of the state. Oh my God, no. No, 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 no. There should be a 100% tax on all inheritance. No, there should be a 0% tax on everything. Hang on. Sorry about that. Spilled my water bottle. All right. Okay. Many members of the working class who vote right-wing live in a kind of false consciousness where they do not understand their own true interests. Oh yeah, we see this all the time because you've got a problem when, all these so-called socialists are like, we're for the working class. We want the best for the working class. Well, why are the working classes so conservative? Oh, well, it's just because they're dumb little children and they need us to show them the way. It's like, no, they're not infants. They're not stupid. They're not, So, then it is so insulting to the working classes, I think, to say that, no, you don't understand your true best interest and you need us, your wise overlords, to tell you what you really need and force you to join a union and go along with the laws that say what that union should be doing and take the choice away from the workers. Because that's what it actually does. It takes choice away from them. So, that's a disagree. I mean, you see this throughout the progressives. It's like they say they're all, oh yeah, we're in favor of women, but a lot of the things that they advocate really make it sound kind of insulting, like women are helpless and need the government to, pay for their contraceptives or, do whatever, protect them in the workplace, as opposed to real feminism, which is supposed to be empowering and not infantilizing. And you also see that with minorities. Oh, think of where the blacks would be without us, when most of their policies are from the eugenics movement and were designed to keep blacks down, including gun control, minimum wage, progressive income taxation, things like that. Yorkshire MGTOW, a lot of working class people can see firsthand the damage caused by minimum wage laws. Yeah, and I think if economists actually had to live that, they might not be going, well, let's see, if we look at these aggregate statistics and we put them in our mathematical model and we I mean, even when they do that, 80% of the time it comes up as destructive. But I mean, there's that 20% that they can cling on to.
And I'm here.
Oh, hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey.
Good. So, how's the test going for us?
Well, found one question that was, I had no idea what it was asking. Had to stay neutral on that. And one that didn't have anything to do with, communism versus libertarianism or whatever this is about. But other than that, question 14, and it's going pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you exactly how you can see the damage done by minimum wage laws, and a lot of us have lived this. If you watch The Hudsucker Proxy, which is a really good movie, Tim Robbins, he comes off the train right into New York, and he's fresh out of college from, I think, Muncie, Indiana, or something like that. And so he's gone off looking for the job. He doesn't get the job board. Now, he's never had a job before. All of these jobs say experience required, must have experience, and he doesn't have any experience. So how can he get a job? And you need the job to get experience, but you need experience to get a job. That's because of minimum wage. Because if you're unexperienced, you can go and undercut the competition and say, hey, I know everyone else is working for, I think $7.15 is the minimum. I'll work for $5 an hour just to start off with, just to get experience. So that cuts you off.
Before we had all these minimum wage laws, if you really wanted to work for a company, but you didn't have any qualification for it, what do? They'll just say, well, I can't make you part of the team, but I'll pay you like $3 an hour just to file paperwork, and we'll see how you do from there.
Yeah, and that's what ultimately happens here. He finds a job that the one and only job that doesn't require experience at Hudsucker Industries, and they just stick him down in the mailroom. But yeah, it's minimum wage laws that get in the way of that. So,
by the way, Shane, about communism, I've thought that I read this funny joke. I wish I didn't fall asleep and I could have been here to tell it from the beginning. It's how do you find where do you find the country with the most communists? Find
Where?
the country with the least amount of suffering and poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, because it's always the rich people who are doing it. I'm looking at all these, even just like regular YouTubers who are doing all that. They all seem pretty well off to me. So
I am, and the Bolsheviks were ironically well-off people.
Well, and it's like what just happened to me with my computer. An unexpected expense of $630 to get a new computer and a week of not being productive. Not just not making YouTube videos, but also not being able to do things for clients. So that was basically a week where I didn't get paid for anything. And that hurts. And a lot of people are in a situation where like, well, that's unfortunate, but no, I just shell it out and get on with it. No, for me, I actually have to reshuffle things and I have to figure out, what I can do without, in order to try and make up for that. So,
Question 115.
The unequal power relations between business owners and workers are inherently exploitative. Gotta love that word, exploitative. Oh, they're exploiting the world. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's just a word that's there to scare you and make it sound bad. But they don't have unequal power. That's the point. This goes to what I was saying earlier about how they're infantilizing the people they claim to be supporting, like workers.
Sorry about that, Shane.
That's okay. And not treating them
out of nowhere.
And not treating them, like the intelligent human beings that they are, capable of making their own decisions.
Yeah,
because an employment relationship is a voluntary relationship. You go into that in a mutually beneficial. Say, okay, yes, I'm willing to put in this amount of work for this many hours for this amount of pay. That's what you're doing.
You know what? It reminds me of that game I was telling you about a while ago, Red Faction. Have you heard of that game, Pipsqueak?
I have heard of it. I actually own it, but I've never played it.
Oh, well, in the video game Red Faction, there's this corporation called the Utol Corporation, and it's portrayed as a stereotypical evil corporation, and it exploits miners and all that, and everyone goes to Mars to work there, but it's revealed, Utor lied to you, it's not a competitive place and all that, and I'm just thinking, okay, this game takes place in the 2070s. How the fuck are people still applying for there? I mean, seriously, look at what's going on today. If a company says, oh no, we're going to cut your bathroom breaks. We're going to cut your bathroom breaks by a minute. Everyone goes, # give me back my potty break. How the heck is the Utor Corporation getting away with all this exploitive people without people saying, yeah, I used to work for Utor and it's terrible. Like there's no internet or something? What's going on?
I don't know. And they always ignore the option of someone creating their own business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they talk about, well, it's so hard to do. Well, it's so hard to do because of your crazy regulations.
Yeah, but of course they say, oh, yeah, but that's state capitalism. I hate people that use that term, state capitalism.
Yeah.
No such thing. In order to be a capitalist, there has to...
It's like military intelligence. All right. Question 16. The state should ensure UBI decoupled from labor performance. No. What would that do except just cause inflation? I mean, if you think it through.
Shane, communism actually is against the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
even though they want the state to do all these things, yeah. The internal contradictions of capitalism, and that's funny because I've defended all of this consistently from first principles, so there aren't any internal contradictions, are so great that the free market system will eventually collapse. We've seen socialist systems collapse and collapse and collapse. Haven't seen a free market system collapse yet. So
Yo, but Shane, what about Chile? Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah, that's a funny.
so free market.
That's a funny thing is that ironically Chile's moved away from the free market reforms that occurred in the 90s, and what's going on? They're starting to suffer the problems that a lot of other statist societies are suffering from. And what are the
Yeah.
politicians doing? Oh, it was neoliberalism that caused this.
Okay, Outdaft UK, the far left complained about machines taking jobs, but push minimum wage law that leads to machine taking people's jobs. Exactly right. That is exactly right.
Oh, yep.
Intellectual property is way more damaged than minimum wage. You might be right about that, Bubblegum. I haven't really done a comparison, but yeah, people really don't understand how much that causes.
Sorry. That cough came out of nowhere. I'm sorry. I'm still got a lot of gunk from the chest cold, so
Yeah, that's been going around here. I've been trying to avoid it, but Heather had it for several days, and it wasn't nice.
yeah, mine only lasted like 3 days, but they were the longest 3 days ever.
As long as we live under a government that has a standing military, corporate welfare, it's stupid to say a minimum wage should not exist. Okay, those two things don't go together. That's a complete non sequitur. I mean, no, we shouldn't have a standing army. No, we shouldn't have corporate welfare. But the existence of those doesn't justify minimum wage or make the damage that it does not happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's the thing I have when I'm talking with communists and all that. They're always talking about how it's like, oh, so you're saying you don't want workers to be free and happy? No, I want them to be free and happy, but the solution is to give them, market choices. Your solution is let's set up a political party that goes around and forces people to do that, or else you throw them into a Siberian gulag. And I'm against that.
Dylan Dower 2000, any plans about doing a video on Liberty Hangout? Well, no plans right now, but yeah, they're not libertarian at all. From what I can tell, they're basically pretty hardcore conservatives, and they dress themselves up to look like libertarians, and that kind of plays into where, the leftists can point, oh, see, there's this libertarian to alt-right pipeline. No, there isn't.
Nah, there isn't. They just kind of reminds me of that one guy who was obsessed with Nazi Germany and the Roman Empire, and he did all this weird paganistic rituals and all that, and people were like, oh, see, and he ran for a libertarian, and look how evil he is, and he wanted to implement fascism. And I'm like, you do realize the Libertarian Party kicked him out, right?
Oh, yeah, none of the libertarians liked the guy. And he didn't even call himself a libertarian. He just registered under a libertarian to get ballot access.
Yeah.
Bubblegum again, corporatism is not a real thing. I don't get how you say that, since the thing we call corporatism actually exists, and that is actually the word that Mussolini used for it. And I think he might have even coined the term. I'm not sure about that. But Prepper are crazy, agree or disagree. I think by preppers, he's talking about those who like say the apocalypse is coming, so I'm going to stockpile food. And I think it's the Mormons who have this thing about they always make sure they have 2 years of food,
and
just in case something bad.
And
it might be Jehovah's Witness. Yeah, it might be them.
Yeah,
it might not be the Mormons.
Because according to a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, they're always talking about their sermon. The end is coming. We don't know when, and we've been wrong about it in the past, but it's coming.
Now you can say, well, that's kind of crazy to have that, and maybe it is, but it might make sense to have a couple months worth of food stored up in case there's some freak storm that knocks out the roads where you are, and you can't get things and you can't get food, and you might have to survive for a couple of weeks, just on what you have in the house. So
to bring it to something topical, apparently there's been this whole scare in Italy because they've had a recent coronavirus case there and they don't know where it came from, and all of the local shops were completely bought out when people try to go get food. So might be a good idea to stock up a bit just in case.
But you know what that is? That's price controls, because if the price had gone up like it should, then people could have gotten what they needed.
Oh yeah, it just boggles me. Mussolini coined the term corporatism. I don't think he did.
I know he used it a lot.
Yeah. But I don't think he coined the term. I remember reading somewhere that said corporatism came... Meme Lord 27, roads, who needs roads? We hate roads. Well, roads, it's just we think that it's just that the government doesn't do a good job of maintaining them, so
definitely not. Vaporware vocab, I'm not sure if Mussolini coined the term, but fascism is a national syndicalist corporatist ideology, so I'm be surprised. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's what people fail to realize. Mussolini wasn't a right-wing extremist. He actually denied fascism as being right-wing.
If prepping gives them peace of mind, then I say fill your boost to them. Well, I mean, yeah, if that's what they want to do, it's their money. And I mean, this is because we had some flooding here a few weeks ago, and right at the place where I am, we're on kind of high ground, and it's not an issue. But there's this one road that I basically used to go pretty much everywhere that had a drain pipe in it that washed out, and it's been closed for like 2 weeks. And I've got alternate routes I can go, but man, it is annoying. I either have to go through this little housing development, or I have to go to try to make this, left turn onto this big highway, or, or go around my ass to get to my elbow, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The last time the state tried to intervene with people hoarding, we got the Ruby Ridge and Waco siege.
All right, let's move on then. 17. Okay, I did that. That's disagree. Yeah.
Okay.
18. People will not work hard in countries where they cannot get rich from their work. Well, I want to say something about the word rich. It's not necessary for them to get rich. They just have to profit from it. They have to get enough gain from it that they feel that it's worth their effort.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If we consider the question to mean that, then I'll agree. Maybe I'll just do one notch instead of two.
I'm going to say this, Shane, because I've been encountering this a lot with my mom when I've been looking for work is there have been a couple of jobs that, are available, but I refuse to take them because they're not, worth the time and effort into it. And my mom does the whole, well, beggars can't be choosers. No, no, that's not true. If you're not gonna quote unquote profit off of it, it's not worth taking in.
Yeah. Iowa Senator, do you ever get depressed that most people just don't seem to get it? It gets frustrating sometimes, but the cool thing is how many people are really starting to get it, and how many of them are telling me that it's because of me, and maybe some others on YouTube, like Dapperton or Hoodie Demon or whoever. Those are ones I hear a lot, and so I think Hoodie Demon was a big loss, but yeah, who say that yes, they've convinced them and now they're coming this way. So that's what keeps me going, because yeah, there are a lot of people who just seem to refuse to get it, but then there are the people who do. So
refuse to get what again? Sorry, my hearing's a little fuzzy.
Oh, well, he's talking about get the stuff I'm talking about, with ethics and the non-aggression principle and things like that.
Yeah, I know it's kind of depressing too, especially with me trying to get a job, even though Wisconsin is more freer than other states, we still have the licensing BS and all that. So a lot of jobs that are available, you either need to have a useless college degree for, you need a license, or you need at least 5 years experience of bippity boppity boo to sign up. So,
all right, here's another badly worded one. Artists should have no private ownership or copyright over the works that they create. Okay, so if a painter paints a painting, he owns the painting. That's his painting. No one else can take the painting unless they pay him for it and he agrees to the price and everything. But that's the physical painting. If someone wants to make a copy of that painting, they should be able to. Now, that person who makes a copy should not be able to say that the original artist created it, because he didn't. I can copy a Van Gogh, and that's fine, but I can't sell it pretending that Van Gogh actually painted it, because he didn't. Yeah. So, but
that's what I hate about copyright and patents, is they always talk about how it's like, especially when they're like, well, you wouldn't steal a car, right? Well, no, if I copy a movie and watch it, that's not physically stealing the movie. I'm just copying it.
You wouldn't download a house. 3D printer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they have 3D printed houses. They exist.
Yo, but those aren't safe because the government said so.
If anything, they're a lot safer than any other house because what they're basically made out of. It sounds kind of like mud with some other like a combination mud and concrete or something, and they just put it on layer by layer. But it's like imagine one single piece of concrete that's that and the ground as well. So I mean, it's the whole thing. It's just like one big piece, of this really hard, structure. So
kind of reminds me of this funny cartoon I saw, and it was about that one guy that made those large, single room buildings. They were like cheap $1,000 homes for homeless people, but the government wouldn't let him use it because they were unsafe. And I saw a thing like that where a homeless guy is being told you can't sleep in those. They're dangerous and unstable safe places for you. And he's like, okay, I'll just pack up my sleeping bag and go sleep under the overpass again.
Yep.
Because that's really not a safe place to sleep under.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. They're like, oh, these little houses aren't safe to live under. It's like, well, compared to what? Compared to sleeping under the overpass or in the middle of the road, like a lot of people are doing?
Well, and you have England, lots of places there where you have a housing shortage. And of course, that makes rents go through the roof. And then you have people doing things like, and look online, people have done some amazing stuff with shipping containers. They just take old discarded shipping containers that, you buy for like what the scrap metal to make them would cost. And so they get them cheap and they build houses around them and they look great. But in England, they're like, oh, you can't do that because blah, 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 blah.
I actually saw this video of Reason.com where a bunch of refugees from Venezuela, they moved to California. And, again, California is going through a housing shortage. And every time someone tries to build more houses, the San Francisco and whatnot government comes in and says, oh, no, you can't build here. You got to do this, that, and this, that, and this. So what did they do to get around the laws? They turned an abandoned storage unit facility into a small little village.
Grambo says to Iowa Senator, there's more of us than you think. We may disagree with the anarchists who are Christians, but we find common ground on the state being the enemy. That goes back to that question earlier about religion. That doesn't really have anything to do with this, so I don't really know why that question was in there.
And ironically, although granted a lot of religious people like to deny it, there's plenty of communistic ideals in the Bible. So I don't know what a lot of these people who say Christian, atheism leads to communism. I'm like, buddy, some of the first communists in existence were religious people, like the Calvinists.
Yeah, Manica built housing shortage caused by the state, rent control, zoning laws, construction permits, minerals regulations, etc. It's a nightmare to build a house in LA or San Fran, for example. Yeah, and we've covered that on the podcast a lot of times. So.
Yeah, Walter Williams once said in an interview with John Stossel about rent control, he said the best way to destroy a city short of aerial bombardment is to implement rent control.
Yep. The state should be responsible for providing all citizens with basic necessities, including food, housing, medical care, and education, because that worked so well in Cuba and Venezuela.
Oh, but Cuba failed because the U.S. wouldn't let it work.
Not real communism. What was that? Didn't Bernie just recently come out and say something good about? I think it was Cuba. It was one of the communist countries that's just a real crap hole, and he was defending because someone went back years with what he said about it, and he doubled down on it. He didn't say, well, looking at the way things turned out. No, he doubled down. I think it was Cuba. Don't quote me on that.
And another funny one that people like to bring up is, what about Vietnam? Even though Vietnam kind of hasn't been a practicing communist state since the 80s.
Poverty, disease, and early death are endemic to capitalism. Well, isn't it funny that once we started having this idea of capitalism and started implementing it in countries, those countries that implemented, even if they didn't implement it 100%, they saw poverty go down, they saw disease go down and even being wiped out, and people living longer, healthier, happier. So what kind of moron would agree with that?
Yeah, and they're so down that when socialists try to bring it up, they have to bring up minor diseases like ringworm to prove, oh, see, people are still living in squalor.
Grambo, don't forget the Byzantine Empire. They were the very first civilization that has an economic system that's a precursor to socialism. Yeah, these are not new ideas. Marx was trying to find an excuse to maintain the status quo that let him live his rich, lavish lifestyle. He wasn't trying to, be a friend of the poor or anything like that. I mean, look at the Roman Empire. I mean, it's pretty much identical in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, the Roman Empire, that's how a lot of Roman emperors got into power, as they would basically say, don't overthrow me, and once a week I'll throw a bunch of gold and I'll give everyone the gold.
When people describe voluntary or libertarian socialism, they're just describing a free market. For it to be voluntary, you require private property. Well, and yeah, that's the problem with the socialism part. Because how do you have free choice and have socialism? Those two don't jive.
Yeah. Oh, but socialism was a left-wing ideology at first, Shane. Everyone knows that.
DJ Arms, poverty is the default. Well, yeah, that's how it was for thousands of years. And you have to live in this ivory tower that the socialists seem to live in to be able to...
Yeah. My personal favorite, though, Shane, is when people compare capitalism to feudalism. Even though feudalism is actually, when you think about it, it's kind of like socialism. It's you don't own your property and land. Everything is owned by an authority. The only difference is that instead of it being owned by the quote-unquote workers, it's owned by the king.
Yep.
Yeah.
22. The state should control all aspects of economic production. The state should control no aspects of economic production, so disagree.
Oh, yeah, because that totally worked in Nazi Germany. Which, by the way, I think I showed it to you. I saw that really cringy video about that one guy saying, well, the Nazis were not real socialists and all that, and basically the entire argument was the Nazis weren't socialists because they put sugar on their porridge, and everyone knows socialists don't put sugar on their porridge.
Yep, a no true Scotsman fallacy. I always point to the, 21 or 22 points that Hitler wrote out when he got control of the party in like the early 20s.
Oh yeah, he wanted redistribution of wealth. He wanted to increase taxes and regulations on the wealthy. He wanted to expand and welfare, and
he wanted worker unions. Yeah.
And of course, people will say, oh, but he didn't implement most of those policies. Well, that was partially because shortly after he took power, he declared war on the world, and he had to temporarily stop his socialist policies to focus on the war.
23. The worth of a commodity should be determined by the amount of labor required to produce it. No, the worth of the commodity should be determined by the utility to the consumer.
Yeah, like I brought this up a perfectly good amount of time when people talk about how it's all about the labor that goes into it. Well, let's take a look at a thick coat. You could spend hours upon hours working on it, getting the materials for it, but it's going to be worth nothing if you try to sell it to people in Miami, Florida, because Miami is hot year round. So unless they're planning a trip to their relatives in Colorado, the average Miami person's going to be, I don't see a need for a thick coat. Yeah, it's a nice coat, but this is Miami. I'm not going to need it.
Well, what I always say is, you can put just as much effort into, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as you do into making a turd sandwich, but no one's going to buy the turd sandwich. And every time I do that, they go, oh, no, don't bring up the turd sandwich thing. Well, then respond to it. Do you have a response to the turd sandwich argument?
Yeah,
Do you think that statists are inherently arrogant? Well, a lot of them certainly seem to be. You know, when I keep responding to these videos, they're like, oh, we don't understand why you people are so dumb that you don't see how, you know, righteous and we are, you know, because our positions are handed down from God himself, you know.
The worst has to be what we like to call the statheists. Those are atheists, you know, who are really smart and rational when it comes to debunking religious and pseudoscience, but the moment you bring up economics, they're like, oh yeah, you know, we need to have men in high castles, you know, telling us what to do because humans are stupid when it comes to economics.
In other words, they think they have the right to control the lives of others. Oh yeah, that's the fundamental arrogance. Like I was saying earlier, you know, about the workers, like, you workers are too stupid to know what you want, so you need us to pass, you know, laws that you disagree with, you know, to make things better for you. Yeah. How do they philosophically justify their position? They don't do it philosophically. They do it by intellectual bullying, really.
Oh, yeah. Or through straw mans and all that, you know, I mean...
Nazis actually weren't socialists. Yes, they were. In practice, they absolutely were. Again, look at the 21 points or however many points it was. And look at how much they actually implemented. Look at the industries they nationalized. Look at all of the, you know, redistribution programs they have. Pretty much to the letter out of the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
Straight from Marx.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny. And it's pretty funny because they always talk about how, well, the Nazis couldn't be socialists because they were also nationalists, and socialists opposed nationalism. And I'm like, no, that's communism. Socialism.
The Nazis are not in any way like American conservatives, Bubblegum. They're not even remotely similar. I mean, try finding a policy they agree with. You know, like conservatives generally want a smaller national government with stronger state governments. That's exactly the opposite of Hitler and the Nazis, who wanted the central government to control everything. You know, this is what gets me about, you know, people saying, oh, the Confederate flag and the Nazi flag go together and they're the same thing. No, they're not. They're philosophically opposites. The Confederates wanted a decentralized structure for government, and the Nazis wanted it centralized. Of course, we want no structure of government at all, but still.
What were you saying, Pipsqueak?
I was about to mention that the distinction between communist and socialist only came about due to the USSR because the Soviets wanted to distinguish themselves from regular socialists.
Yeah, for the most part, Marx used the terms interchangeably.
And and you know what I was telling this to a friend of mine. You know why I really get peeved off when people keep denying what the Nazis really were? And I tell this to people, and it goes back to the whole, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it, is because if we don't learn what the Nazis and the communists really were, they're going to come back, and we're not going to realize it till it's too late.
All right, let's move on to the last question. Question 24. The absence of a free market economy will inevitably lead to the suppression of individual rights. Well, those are actually the same thing, because a free market economy means that individuals are acting freely. When you interfere with that, you're suppressing individual rights. So they really are the same thing. So
yeah, it kind of reminds me how some of those statists are like, well, how is the market gonna solve all this stuff? And I'm like, it's because the market is you and me. It's people it's people going to Walmart and saying, I might buy this product, but Target has it for cheaper, or I could buy it for the convenience right here. It's you going on Amazon and comparing prices. It's you going on websites, you know, saying, you know, hey, are there any secret coupon codes for products and stuff like that?
Yeah, because Amazon isn't just interested in what people buy. They're interested in what people looked at but didn't buy.
Yeah.
And they make decisions based on that. But yeah, I mean, the problem is, you know, there is no the market. You know, the market will solve it. There is no the market. There's just people. There's just individuals.
Yeah,
and set individuals free. And the government is just individuals too. Who's to say the individuals in government necessarily have all of these answers and no one else can, as opposed to setting everyone free to come up with their own solutions and everyone picking which one works best for them. I mean, you have to be believing that somehow the individuals that make up government get some sort of, divine revelation or something so that they can know how to do all of this.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, Shane, because every time someone brings up, well, how's the market going to solve, this current issue that's going on that no one seems to have discovered yet? It's like, dude, that's no different than a creationist saying the Big Bang Theory couldn't have happened because scientists haven't been able to properly explain, what created the universe before the Big Bang?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is, well, we don't know, but there's no doubt in my mind that somewhere along the line, scientists will discover a way. It's the same thing with markets.
Well, it's a bit like saying if okay, we have an orphan here. Well, we know from science that this orphan was once a baby that had parents, and the creationists would be like, well, you can't point to the parents, so you can't prove that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just how a lot of these economic statists are no different than creationists. They're like, well, you can't think of an immediate, response, so therefore you're wrong. Well, no, and so there are some problems going around there that we currently don't have the answer to. But if you would just let people be free to trade and experiment with new ideas, we'll come up with a solution.
Sanguine, without the interference from outside forces, the market is an emergent property of people. And yeah, there is some validity in looking at people as a superorganism and kind of seeing how the market does. But as soon as you forget that behind all of your equations and everything, there's human action, as soon as you forget that, you're lost and you become like Paul Krugman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Paul Krugman, the guy who, if you told them, Mr. Krugman, Russia's launching nuclear missiles at us. Oh, that'll be perfect. Think of all the jobs that'll be created for the construction people, the radioactive cleanup crews and all that.
He said that after Sandy Hook, he said that. Well, no, not Sandy Hook, Hurricane Sandy. Wrong Sandy, sorry.
Oh, yeah. He said that. He said, oh, think of all the jobs, It actually became a popular internet meme of him, being a weatherman, saying, and as you can see, this economic stimulus is coming to America's east side coast.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the human action point, I always like to say that the economy is the perfect chaotic system. Because in science, a chaotic system is a system that you can't essentially calculate you can't accurately estimate the result of, because you don't have access to all the inputs. Much like
bubblegum.
A classic example is weather, but I always like to say the economy is one as well, because even the individual human being doesn't really know what they want, because they subconsciously substitute what they can get for what they actually want, which is why entrepreneurship exists, because it's basically entrepreneurs basically guessing what people actually want compared to what's available on the market currently.
Bubblegum, give it up. The Nazis absolutely were socialists. That is documented fact. No YouTube video can go against that documentation. We have Hitler's however many points they were. We know what his policies were. We know what he said. We know what he did. And it is 100% consistent with socialism. Okay, there was this other stuff added on, like killing all the Jews, which wasn't really a part of it. But all of the stuff he did economically is socialism. Deal with it.
Which, fun fact, contrary to popular belief, killing all the Jews, that wasn't even Hitler's idea to begin with.
No, that just kind of ended up being a convenient scapegoat for the economy.
Yeah. If I recall correctly, the original plan was to just, kick them all out of Germany. But as they began conquering more and more nations, and the Nazis thought that they were going to win the war, they're like, but wait a minute, if we win the war, we're going to annex almost all of Europe. Where are we going to send them to? America doesn't want to send them, doesn't want them. The Soviets don't want them. What are we going to do with them? And a couple of SS commanders said, I have an idea. Let's kill them.
Well, and the other problem is that the Jews had very strong communities that were very difficult to deal with militarily. And, breaking them up was actually crucial to what they wanted, because they got rid of a lot of the resistance that way.
Yeah.
right.
Also, bubblegum. What video? All I'm seeing is a bunch of. All I'm seeing.
That's the link to the video that's in there that he's trying to put in. So.
Yeah, all I'm
but
seeing.
I don't know. I don't know what possible video could go against facts that have been established. They are on the record. They have been confirmed by multiple independent sources. And it's not like something like we recently discovered going back to the document. No, we've known it the whole time.
And like I said, almost all the videos I've seen of people trying to explain why the Nazis weren't socialists, like I said, it was just them saying, well, the Nazis weren't socialists because they were putting sugar on their porridge, and socialists don't do that. And
all right, I think it's truth time here, people. I've answered all the questions. So place your bets. Am I a commie? Where's your odds? It's happening right now. Okay, my communism score is 10% not communist. I guess that's those couple that were weirdly worded, and I don't know which way it was supposed to go. Your personal agreement with communism is low, indicating that you support few of communism's principles as presented in classical Marxian literature, so you can't throw me out of a helicopter. You most likely believe in the necessity of private property and private business, yes I do, as well as the right to free economic association and individually controlled production. You most likely also believe that individuals are more motivated by the prospect of personal gain than by serving the needs of some amorphous social group, such as society, that the individual perhaps never asked to be a part of. That's actually very well worded. I like that.
Yeah. By the way, Shane, what you said about being thrown out of a helicopter, just a little fun fact is a lot of people say that a lot of people make that joke with Pinochet, but the funny thing is I've researched Pinochet, and from what I read, he actually didn't do that. He didn't throw people out of helicopters. There was a case where he threw out a treacherous general out of a plane, but he didn't use helicopters. That was an Argentinian practice. And even then, it actually wasn't used as an execution method. It was used as a form of psychological torture where they would blindfold you and cover your ears up to snuff out your matter of possession, and they would take the helicopter, but they would only fly it a few feet off the ground. Then they would take off, the earplugs and say, okay, tell us, where the rebels are. And if you didn't say it, they would push you out. And
that was in the Gods Must Be Crazy. That was a really funny scene.
Yeah.
From what I've heard that only one person was thrown out of a helicopter, but they had already been executed by a firing squad, and it was basically done just as a publicity.
Yeah.
But I don't know how accurate that is.
Which, by the way, communist, almost all the South American dictators, they were, to an extent, socialists in a way, especially Juan Perón. That was his name, right? Juan Perón?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Primarch Sanguinius, the longer I stay off of social media, the more faith I have in the human race. Yeah, I think that's a good part of it.
Oh, yeah.
I only get on Facebook nowadays just to check, like, if I have any messages from people, because there are a few family members I can only communicate with through Facebook, and other than that, I don't even really do Instagram that more. I did one just after I rebuilt my system just because I felt like it, because I'm having activation problems with Microsoft, and it's not letting me. You're supposed to be able to move your hard drive over to a new system, and this is exactly the same hard drive, but now they're saying that I can't do that with, my thing, even though it's a paid thing, and I would have to buy it again. So I made this meme where it was like, me upgrades hardware, Microsoft, and it's that meme of the baby crying, and it's like, you're stealing from us. So it's let's see. If you answer in favor of IP copyright, you get 0% communist for some reason. Okay, that's weird, because IP is very much a communist idea.
I think some of that 10% might also come from the religion question earlier. I know that religion as an opiate of the masses is a fairly common communist talking point.
Well, that's from Marx, isn't it? That's a direct quote, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Bubblegum, look at the video. Get out of your bubble.
Look at the video. I've pasted this link 17 times, but if I post it an 18th time, you all will suddenly believe me. Yeah.
And he's saying, get out of your bubble. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. See, this drives me crazy because libertarians go out of our way to go out of the bubble. We don't really have a bubble is the thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're out constantly. I did this in Why We're Rude to You. You know, we're constantly going outside, learning everything there so that we can reason through it. And then all we get are the same BS talking points that we've gotten for years over and over again. And it's like, further the conversation, people.
Yeah. And you know, I actually had that one time when I was on an atheist group for a while, and I was on the forum, and we were talking about you know, economics, and I mentioned I was a libertarian, and everyone kept demanding me of these questions, and finally I just said, you know what? I'm not playing this game. Listen. Libertarians are not advocating for the use of force for anyone. We're not forcing you to do anything. So you know what? I do not have to explain myself, but you have to explain why you want to use force on peaceful people because you don't agree with how they're behaving.
Exactly.
And they were all like, no, you have to. And I'm just like, I'm not playing this game. I'm not playing this game. Yeah.
Nope. Manica Bill mentions The Socialism of National Socialism by Razorfist. I think I've seen that. If it's one I'm thinking about, it's really good. But then Bubblegum goes, no, not Razorfist. No, don't watch theirs. No, just watch this one. Come in our bubble and stay in our bubble and ignore history.
Yeah.
Yeah, Outdaft UK. Libertarians have to be out of the bubble because there's statism everywhere. Exactly, yeah. All right, I think it's time to wrap all of this up. So I'll probably do an edited version of this where I take out all the things trying to get things to work. But things should be good now. So thanks, everyone. It looks like I'm back up and running. Pip's dropped off, but thanks, Pip, for joining us. Thanks, Chris, for coming in when you did. Joining us for as long as you could.
And I'm very sorry for all that, you know, guttural coughing I did. Those have been coming out of nowhere. I've been trying to control them, but they just catch up on you.
Yeah. And thanks everyone in the chat. And as usual, thanks to everyone who has supported this podcast. Please go to donate.bogosity.tv if you like this. Hit like and subscribe and share this video everywhere. Thank you very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.